Hello and welcome to Thought Provoking Tech. I'm Zach, and in today's video, we're going to be continuing the Synology setup guide. We're going to be setting up shared folders, setting up additional users, and a bunch of other tasks just to get everything kind of set up and ready to start installing applications that actually fully utilize your Synology device. So, without further delay, let's get started. Alright, so I have the destination manager open up on my in my browser. Now I'm going to go ahead and go to the control panel. I have turned on advanced mode already, but normally it'll look probably like this. In the top right, you'll be able to click on advanced mode and have all the options available to you. I don't have a domain set up at my house, so I won't be able to really show off those features. But today I'm going to kind of focus on this top row right here, which is kind of some of the basics. And I'm going to go just kind of cover some of the things intermittently throughout here that are kind of just some of the basics and aren't really specific use cases. So let's go ahead and do the shared folder. And I'm going to go ahead and hit create because I have none right at this point in time. So I'm just going to create a bucket folder for all my data, all my project data. And then I'll have a pretty simple shared folder system architecture. With kind of all my project data being in a main folder, and I'll have that kind of divided out within subfolders inside that. And then I'll have an archive folder for projects that are completed or no longer being worked on. And then I'll have like a backups folder. And you can set this however you want to. If you wanted to have your shared folder be more, divisioned out with having tons of different ones for different projects or different parts of your life, such as like media. So like your music and your video, if you wanted to make like a local Plex server or something like that. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. I'm going to go ahead and disable the recycle bin. And I'm going to enable encryption. What an encryption will do is if you have if your drive is like taken out of your Synology NAS, this will prevent like data from being read for the most part. It uses AES 256-bit encryption to encrypt the data on your drive. So it's kind of similar to like Windows. If you have like the professional version, you can use BitLocker. It's kind of similar to that. I'm going to go ahead and leave advanced data integrity protection enabled. And I'm not going to enable like quota, but that is something that you could do if you wanted to say that this shared folder can only have a terabyte of storage, so that maybe a certain user or a certain division, if you're running this as a business, doesn't take up all the shared drive, to kind of force them to be more conservative with their storage techniques, if that's something that you want to do. I never use that, but the option is there. That's one of the great things about Synology. They have so many options that most of the stuff you'll never use, but it's there if you ever need it. Just telling you that there's no way to recover data and so forth if you don't have the key. So just normal encryption stuff. If you encrypt data, you have to have the encryption key to unencrypt it. So it just kind of follows along in that trend. So I'm going to go ahead and just give myself access, and give the default accounts no access at this point in time. So you have all kinds of other things beyond permissions. So you have advanced permissions. You can disable directory browsing. You can do all kinds of different things along those lines. And then you have NFS permissions if you have NFS set up. Would you stop it? Okay. So I have my first shared folder set up, and then I'm going to go ahead and create another one for archives real quick. And I'll go ahead and create one for backups too once this gets done processing. So I'm just trying to setting up my system architecture right now. And what I'd normally do if I was if I had a bigger drive, what I normally do is, or a bigger Synology device, is I would set up multiple different volumes. If I had another drive with me right now, I would possibly consider that. But I only have 4 drives right now, so with 4 drives, that essentially means that to have a disk of redundancy, you only really will have each volume. If you split that in half, you would have to split that equally to have 2 drives for each volume, because that's going to be pretty much the minimum if you want any redundancy at all. You're only going to have a single drive's capacity of storage. So I don't really want that right now. If I did have a third one, I'd probably set up, one with 2 drives of capacity, and one is the data redundancy disk for my main drive, and then have the other one for my backups. But I do, recommend that if you're going to be using backups locally, to have that on a separate volume. That's just a good best practice, so that if for some instance, if one volume gets corrupted somehow, if it has a massive failure for some reason or another, if you weren't monitoring the device health, and one of the drives end up dying, and another one happens just to have an issue, you don't have that data redundancy in that volume. You still have the separate volume of like the data backups. It's just the best practice to always do that, but I don't really have the device capacity right now to do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and advance with this, and go ahead and do my standard process. And now I have 3 different shared folders set up. So you can actually unmount and mount the drives from here. And then beyond that, the next thing you'll probably want to do is actually create another user, so someone else can actually access your device. I don't want to create a user really at this point in time, but I'll kind of just walk through that process. So you can actually set up their email if you wanted to, but the only things that you really need is a username and a password. You can send a notification mail to the newly created user, or have a couple other options where you can like disallow the user to change their account password if that's something you want. There's a couple of different things you can actually do with the device. If you are in a setting with the domain, you can actually just pull that usernames from your domain into your Synology NAS. So actually have a extra field. I think it's in the user field that it's called domain users and domain groups, I believe. Or it might be domain users over here if you actually have this connected to your domain. If you join your Synology NAS to your domain, then everybody on your Active Directory domain will just automatically have access, and you can give them access in the shared folder to set up the permissions, just like you saw here when I was setting up permissions. That's where it shows up. Okay, so it'll be here. You'll actually see, once you have set up the domain, you'll see domain users as another option here, and you'll be able to give the domain users access to the certain shared folders as you so choose. So setting up the domain is super simple. It's just joining it, just like you would join on any computer for the most part. Just type in the domain, the domain server IP, and you just join through there. So it's a pretty simple process, and it does make it very easy to add shared folders to your business. So that's pretty much done. I'm going to go ahead and let's go to the network. So if you have a network interface, what you can do is that you can actually connect 4 different LAN connections to the DS1515 Plus, which is what I have, I believe. If you wanted to, you can actually create a bond. So there's all different types of bonds. I'd recommend reading upon these and kind of setting up one that fits best with your architecture. The adaptive load balancing is the one that doesn't require any special network equipment for the most part to work. There are some that work with special network, and you'll probably get a lot better performance out of those because of the special hardware required. And then there are simply just active and standby. So it provides just pure fault tolerance, and that would be useful if you had multiple different switches in your network setup. You could connect one to each switch, and if for some instance one just decided to give up and die uh, one day, or you had them plugged into separate battery backups, for instance, and the power goes out, one of them might go down quicker than the other one, so that people connected to that backup can still have time to back up their data and so on and so forth. You can have the people that are do engineering files and using files from your Synology device connected to a battery backup on that switch, and then have important equipment running off another switch that isn't battery backed up, so you have that fault tolerance on your LAN devices. And the bond is really only useful if you have multiple users accessing it for like the adaptive load balancing. Since I'm primarily going to be using this Synology device by myself, this is not really going to be something that I'm going to be using, but you can set it up for that if you so chose to. The next thing, just want to cover this real quick. We'll probably come back to it later, but here's kind of your task scheduler. Shows you all the things that your Synology NAS is going to be doing. When we start setting up backups and stuff in the future, then we'll be coming back to this and just kind of looking at it from time to time. But that's kind of just the basics. You can create different backups. You can actually have services come through here. You can have your cycle bin automatically empty out if you so chose. But you can have user-defined scripts. But you can also have services. So certain services you can set them to turn off at a certain period of time during the day. At work for our Synology, before we had a better internet connection through our ISP, what I had to do is I had to disable certain services during the day while we were there, so that they weren't trying to utilize, like for example, Cloud Sync. I had that set up, but I only had that running at night so that it didn't impact the network performance. It's for our business, because if you do have a lower bandwidth connection, then that could be a massive downside. Here is the update and restore. You can actually make backup files, so you can quickly get your Synology NAS back up to speed if, for instance, something goes wrong and you have to completely restart. So here's if you wanted to revise your update settings. I have mine to install the newest DSM automatically at 3 a.m. on a daily basis. You can set yours up however you really wanted to. One final point that I wanted to touch base on in this kind of setup guide, as we kind of finish this guide and move into more specifics in the future, is the security panel. Here's a bunch of cool features to kind of just increase the security of your Synology device. So here you can have the browser automatically time you out. I like bumping that up a little bit just because normally I'm in here for a while, and if I go and get distracted to do a different task real quick, I want to come back and not have to re-sign in all the time. So one of the good things about that is you can just enable a bunch of different settings, like for example, not to be embedded within an iframe. You can enable your firewall. You can enable denial of service DOS attacks if you wanted to. Go ahead and enable that. And then a really cool thing is the auto block. You can actually enable it to auto block user login attempts if they've had X amount of logins within a certain period of time. So as you can see here, I have it set up to 5 and 120. So that means if someone tries to log into their account 5 times within a 2-hour window, it'll automatically block their IP address. This is not a huge negative, because all you have to go through is just log in and unblock their IP address. So if someone just forgot their password or something, then it's pretty simple to unblock them, but it does help prevent malicious login attempts if someone is trying to access your Synology NAS remotely. So just a quick tip that I recommend just doing: you can actually have blocks expire automatically if you wanted to. You can have your own SSL certificate if you wanted to. This is the Synology one. Chrome doesn't like the self-signed one from Synology, but that you can choose to use one from, and that's probably something I will show, is to have one from the Let's Encrypt, using Let's Encrypt to have your own SSL certificate. And you have a bunch of other different options too. You can have only modern compatibility. So essentially, this makes it so you have all the outdated ones that might have different vulnerabilities. Just enable that so that it only has the most modern compatibility. Some older devices might not be able to access this, so you might have to kind of play with that depending on kind of the devices you have in your system and what you're wanting to use with your Synology device. But there's just some best practices to just help protect your data. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. It's going to go ahead and apply those services and made some changes, so it's going to have to restart the web services. But that's pretty much it for this video. One thing that I wanted to iterate on is just kind of some of the basics in the setup process. So I hope you kind of got the full setup process between these two videos. This is pretty much all the basics. Now there's a bunch of cool things that you can do with your Synology device now that you have set it up. Some of those are like the Synology Cloud Sync that I've talked about already, or the Cloud Station server that kind of essentially makes your Synology device a Microsoft OneDrive or Dropbox alternative or Google Drive alternative. There's a bunch of other services out there, Box, so on and so forth. Essentially makes your device essentially very close and to one of those in the fact of how it can resemble the setup of that. So just something to keep in mind when you're setting up. There's a lot of cool tools that you can use, and there's a lot of cool things that you can do, making this more than just a network attached storage NAS device. So essentially what we've done now is we have made it kind of a network attached storage device, but there's so much more that you can do beyond that, and I'll have some future videos kind of going over those. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you gained a little bit from it. Hope it helped you with your setup process, hopefully. And make sure you liked the video if you did like it and gained a little bit from it. Make sure you subscribe too, and hit that little bell icon to be notified whenever I release new videos. I will have lots of new content on continuing to set up the Synology device in the future. So hopefully you enjoyed those and gained something from them. One final thing, if you have any comments, check out the links in the description below, check out the links in the description, and if you have any comments, leave those in the comment field below and I'll get back with you. Or you can hit me up on one of the social media services, which you see rotating through the banner throughout the video. I'm on Twitter and Facebook, and also on Patreon if you want to go over there and consider supporting me by becoming my patron. Once again, thanks for watching, guys, and until next time, Zach out.